Today we are moving into the last part of the chapter, organism and population, and today we are going to discuss about the last type of population interaction, and what is that? It is competition. Okay, the competition, when you are saying, there are two types of competition. One is inter-specific and another one is intra. Inter means what? If the competition is taking place between two different species, then we call it as inter. One is A and another one is B. Intra means what? When the competition is taking place within the same species of a population, then we call it as what? It is intra, between the same species. Okay, this is between different species, here it is within the species. Clear? Now this competitions, when you are seeing, it can be related, can be taking place in two unrelated animals. Like for example, flamingo is a bird and fish is a fish species, isn't it? So in South American lakes, when you are seeing, the flamingo as well as the fishes are competing for the floating animals, zooplanktons, for food. Zooplanktons are the food. For that, who and all is competing for that zooplankton, getting that zooplankton? One is flamingo and another one is your native fish. In the same way, you can find Abingdon tortoise is a tortoise. When there was a place, the name of the place is called as Galapagos Island. What is that island's name? Galapagos. Okay, so there were existing tortoise, a variety of tortoise, we call it as Abingdon tortoise. Okay, so this tortoise, they became extinct. Okay, all of a sudden, within 10 years round, this tortoise population came down. Then while they studied why, because into that Galapagos Island, goats were introduced. Okay, so when these goats were introduced, these goats started grazing the plants and taking away the food. Now these goats, when they are taking away all the food, they were very good grazers. So they voraciously they were feeding, they were eating it up fast. So this tortoise were not having insufficient food. They cannot compete with whom? This goats. So they suffered, and later what happened is that slowly they started dying and the species itself became extinct. Okay, so there is a competition between this Abingdon tortoise and goats, flamingo and native fishes. So when you are saying, it's totally different species having a competition for resource food. Okay, yeah. In this context, you have to learn some terms. Okay, so what do you mean by a term called as competitive release? So what is the term we are going to learn? Competitive release. So what is competitive release? It refers to the phenomenon of a species whose distribution is restricted to small geographical area. Because of the presence of competitively superior species, they expand, and competitively species is experimentally removed. So that is good example what we discussed was just now, Abingdon tortoise, isn't it? So that is acting as what? A competitive release. So how it is acting as competitive release? See, this goats are considered as competitive release. Goats, when it was introduced, okay, what became extinct? Abingdon tortoise became extinct. So it refers to this phenomenon of species whose restricted to a small geographical area. So this Abingdon was present in one small geographical area. Now one competitive variety came into that area. Who was that? It was the goat. Now when this goat came into that area, what happened? They started multiplying, their number went on increasing. What happened to that tortoise? That tortoise number went on decreasing, because in this competition, goat were superior than the tortoise. Later what happened? The experimentally who was removed? The tortoise was removed. Who took over? The goats took over. Okay, so this is an example for what? Competitive release. The same invasive species and all we see, isn't it? Some gets into a population, they start eating up all the substances over there, and thereafter the natural varieties, they cannot sustain there. Invasive. Okay, so these are all example for what? Competitive release. Now moving on to Gauss competitive exclusion principle. Okay, so what do you mean by this Gauss competitive exclusion principle? See, two closely related species competing for the same resource. So imagine this is the resource, food. Okay, two species are competing. Who are competing? Two species, related species. One is A and another one is B. They are competing for the same resource. they cannot, he is saying that they cannot coexist, this as well as this cannot stay together, okay, indefinitely. For some time okay adjust kar leta hai, but they cannot coexist forever, okay. And the competitively among this, if B is inferior it will be killed, if A is inferior it will be killed. So in the gradual time what happens is that the inferior one will be eliminated and the superior one will survive, okay. So that is called competitive exclusion principle. In a competition the superior one will eliminate the inferior one, will exclude the inferior one out of the race, okay. So this is called competitive exclusion principle. Now another one term we got to learn in this competition is another scientist, his name is MacArthur, okay. So MacArthur, what he said is that competitive exclusion is not totally correct. There exists a phenomenon called as resource partitioning. And what is this resource partitioning? See, listen, in this they are coexistence. Coexistence means you can understand everyone is cooperating and staying together in one particular place. So how he said is that there was a tree, okay. So in one tree there were 5 species of warblers. Warblers are nothing but birds, it's bird species, okay. So 5 different species of warblers were there, and these warblers they were not fighting with one another, rather they gradually changed their feeding habit, so that some were feeding on leaves, some were feeding on fruits, some were feeding on the branches, okay. So like that they changed their what? Foraging activities. Foraging means what? Food eating habits, their beaks and all got modified, behavioral differences was made, so that in that one particular tree, instead of these 5 species competing for one fruit only, no, some were having leaves, some were having seeds, some were having fruits, some were having the roots, okay. So like that they were happy with what? They changed, modified their behavior, and there were resource partitioning. Resource partitioning means like you have in one area like this to this, it is my resource, you are not supposed to get into this, okay. And from here to here it is another species resource, nobody like gunda and all have na, ye mera ilaka hai, isme mat aana, hum yahan rahenge, tumko chahiye to tum thode dur chale jao, like that you can find what they have resource partitioning. So this is one particular resource means one place, like for example this is a place, if you see, so they are dividing it into different resources, okay. One is the fruit eaters, one is seed eaters, one is branch eaters, one is leaf eaters, like that they are dividing themselves, so that resources being partitioned, all the species can coexist in one particular place, okay. So this one we call it as what? Resource partitioning, in order to overcome competition. This is one of the phenomena which is taking place. You can see for competition, this is flamingos, fishes are there in water, both are competing for zooplanktons, okay. So this is Abingdon tortoise, which was eliminated by the introduction of goats. Hope it's clear, and with this we are completing this chapter. Hope all are doing well. Stay home, stay safe, don't go out, okay. Thank you.